What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eichmann. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence.
What was the goals that you all had? Like, was it like, we're going to get this one and then we're going to get to 2,500 units? Like, was the vision there at that point? Or?
No, the vision wasn't anywhere close to 25 units. You know, the vision was to get to like 20 in like 10 years.
Okay.
You know, so we got one that first year and, you know, two the year after that and two or three the year after that, you know. So, you know, the first 5 years, we probably only had 12 to 15, you know, so we're well on our way to that initial goal. But then it really started to pick up pace from there.
And that was due to like the real estate market at that time, or was that other things going on and you guys like learning how to do it more?
It was learning how to do it, and also like financing was tough, you know. So banks got in pretty big trouble in 2008, 2009. Had a lot of bad debt in their books, you know, and the last thing they were really looking to do was finance like new startup real estate companies.
Yeah, that's a really tough sell.
Yeah. So like the first property, two of us actually went together and like co-signed on it.
Really?
Like it wasn't even a business loan. It was just a personal loan on like a secondary.
We're going to make this
vacation
happen. Because the financing is easier to like get through and like take possession of it pretty much, right?
Yeah. I mean that, and you know, some of us had mortgages, but we certainly had, you know, Minnesota Capital Management had no business experience. You know, we were a filed entity with the state of Minnesota with, you know, $30,000 in a bank account. And that's all the financing history that company had. So no bank was going to touch that in 2011.
And so out of the six, was everyone in like the corporate space beforehand?
Yep. Yeah. 4 of the 6 were at Target and corporate, and then the other 2 were in like the engineering space. So one is
but nobody was an entrepreneur at that point. Nobody was like running a business.
No.
All the learning just like happened within that group together.
Yeah. I mean, most people, you know, didn't own a home or know how to fix a home. Like growing up, my dad was a general contractor, so like I had a decent idea of the mechanicals of a house works.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of trial and error. I mean, we certainly, you know, learned the hard way on a lot of things as far as how to fix up a house and run a real estate business.
What were some of those things you had to learn the hard way?
So I was putting some carpet in the first place we bought in Ramsey in the basement. And we ended up buying this like the cheapest, like $29 a cent carpet, and we were gluing it to the floor. And I was giving a talk to 2 of the other guys who were helping me. And I'm like, the key with carpet is just don't cut it short. You know, you can always cut it long, cut more off of it.
Yep.
And of course, I cut it about 6 inches short coming around one of the corners. So then we had to cut a little piece and kind of glue it in there. And you know, the carpet still is in there today. That still doesn't look very good.
What an awesome story, though. Going from like laying the carpet in your first unit, your first purchase, to building like the multiple businesses that have come from it. Like, how does everybody stay like in harmony with that? Because that's 15 years, and how many business transactions and deals? Like we were talking earlier, I feel like it's almost like a band. Like you almost expect something to go wrong when there's that many people. How do y'all keep it on track with Minnesota Capital Management?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly gone better than most outsiders would think for 13 years and 6 people. You know, luckily the success of the business, you know, has been very strong throughout there, and the growth has been great. We have quarterly meetings. We'll sit down for 4 hours and go over every aspect of the business. But, you know, at this point, there's 3 of us that work for the company full time and 3 that work corporate jobs. And there's a lot of trust in the corporate guys to, allow the operators to
Do
execute
stuff, yeah.
the strategy, right?
And that trust just gets built over time. Obviously, you're playing your softball buddies, and that evolves and just relationship deepens so that those things can actually happen and not be limited by how somebody feels about somebody else or like where that decision making's coming from. Like the trust just kind of accelerates things for business, right? Creates opportunity.
It does. And I feel like we've had a ton of open, honest conversations about, challenges that the business is facing. Early on, like I mentioned, we're all in there every Saturday, painting walls and fixing stuff, right? And then, as people get married and have kids and other responsibilities grow, they can't be in there, painting every weekend, right? So then it comes, all right, these 3 people are doing more work than these 3 people, and that can create animosity. So how do you fix that? So
you have to have the conversation pretty much, right? It starts there.
Yeah, the conversation. And at that time, the solve was, okay, we're now going to basically pay ourselves out of the company based on the hours of labor put in fixing up these properties.
That makes sense.
That went on well for a couple of years. People we're only paying probably $20 an hour, but it was at least something for the disparity in time.
And then at some point, another iteration had to occur because it continued to grow, right?
Yeah, then it continued to grow, and people's career and family lives and other responsibilities grow, and then it's we're going to have to hire somebody else to do some of this work or hire one of us. And it was, I think, summer of 2016 or 17, and we had our annual meeting up north at a place in Grand Rapids, and we spent that whole meeting trying to figure out how to pay a salary to one of the 6 of us to basically run the property management aspect of our business. And it was some relatively cheap salary looking back at it, but it's still a lot of cash for the business at the time. And
it's a big decision, right?
Big decision, yeah. He at the time lived in Texas, so we, coming out of that meeting, made the decision to basically move him and his family up to Minnesota. They actually lived in my house for probably the first 9 months. And, he basically took the real estate business to the next level by putting property management processes in place while we're growing the portfolio as a whole.
So was there something that like you all as a group identified was going wrong at that point? Or was it the vision had changed and we know we need somebody with complete focus on management? Like what was that?
It was basically the growth piece of it was going well. We had enough track record where we can get some bank financing now, which was good. We were making more money in our corporate jobs, so we could fuel some of this growth. Properties were still cheap at that point, but just the workload with everybody working full-time jobs was getting too much. I'm sitting at my desk at Target, like fielding like tenant prospecting calls, and it's very quiet in there, so it's pretty clear what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So, we just needed to move to, somebody full-time to coordinate, leasing and maintenance and kind of acquisitions.
So that was the first person that jumped from the corporate side of things to like you're full-time with Minnesota Capital Management. And now there's only 3 partners that are full-time. You guys have a massive team with the different companies that you're running, right? Like what was the next transition, I guess? Because essentially there's 6 people that were in the corporate world and they're playing softball together. You get this idea, we're going to start this real estate investment company or whatever the idea was at that point. And now slowly everybody kind of evolves into an entrepreneur, right? Into that business. So I'm trying to like think through like how that evolution for 6 people occurred, because not a lot of people do that.
Yeah. So once Matt kind of went full time for Minnesota Capital Management, put the structure in place for property management. We continued to buy properties through 2016 and 2017 there, and really the first big shift for us was to start investing into larger deals. And we'd never bought anything more than a 4-unit quad. But we have a mentor, Alex Eaton, out of Cantaris. His company, he was probably 6 or 7 years ahead of us in kind of the progression of a real estate investment company. And he is now buying, 50 to 100 unit buildings and, in St. Paul, Minneapolis, and kind of the, first tier of suburbs around the city. And at that point, these are bigger deals for him. He's investing heavily in these deals, but he's also raising
Capital.
Capital to invest in these deals. And, we invested in 5 or 6 of his deals between 2016 and 2019, which in hindsight were fantastic years to invest in these projects. They grew considerably in value over that period. But we learned a lot from him as far as how to lead these deals, because you're doing everything from property identification to capital fundraising to, leasing strategy to maintenance strategy, 100 units all next to each other versus, at the time we had 25 units.
It's just it's a different ball game, right? So this Alex Eaton, like he kind of like took you under his wing, like a group of you, or
he was definitely a mentor to us and still is today.
So
throughout that process.
So that's like having a mentor. How important has that been to the overall growth that you personally have had?
Yeah, I feel like mentorship is extremely important regardless of the facet in business you're in, whether it's in an entrepreneurial role or it's a corporate role or whatever you're doing. It's so much easier to learn from those that have what you are looking for than to try to basically recreate that from scratch on your own.
You just have to find the information, even though you don't even know.
Yeah, you learn a lot. You learn from other people's mistakes are far less costly than learning mistakes with your own pocketbook.
So everybody's learning a whole bunch of new stuff together. And was everybody kind of separated out and like focused on this is your area, this is your area, this is your area of focus? Or was it just like, we got to make this happen? If you got to take the kids somewhere, like we still got to make this happen type of deal?
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it was still mainly Matt running kind of the helm, of the ship, and he still runs the helm on the real estate side. But basically learning from Alex, he was spending a lot of time just networking in the real estate space, so getting connected with dozens of people across the Twin Cities. A lot of them we still have closer relationships or have invested mutually in deals together. But he was really kind of casting that net and learning as much as he could about real estate in the Twin Cities and, eventually nationally.
So learning and networking. And when did you make that transition to working not corporate over into working for your business?
It was probably like late 2018, as we were looking kind of the opportunities, there's, more and more investment deals coming up that we really liked, but, it's just, again, a matter of money, right? So we're trying to find a way to generate more money. Real estate is great long-term growth wealth vehicle, but it's not necessarily going to produce just piles of cash on a consistent periodic schedule. So we started looking at other business models that produce more kind of consistent cash flow, kind of your more, traditional business models. And I happened to be home. I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I was home for Christmas in 2018, and my uncle's a huge golfer. And he was like, hey, you got to come check out this X golf space. It just opened up in town. We went over there one Tuesday morning, simulated golf, full bar restaurant, 5,000 square foot of space. Played golf there, loved the technology. In Minnesota at the time, there were 1 or 2 sim places, and it was fairly out of date technology. And I mean, it was fine, but like nothing you'd go to, time and time again and really enjoy the experience. But the X golf technology was better than I'd ever seen, and this entire operation, bar, check in, check out, hostess, all that was being run by one person, right? So in the food and bev space, your labor cost is by far your biggest operating expense.
Yeah.
And this thing, is, from what I could see, producing significant revenue, with one
human
employee
being
running it, right?
So you saw the opportunity, and then did you know it was a franchise at that point?
I had no idea what it was. So I got back to my grandma's house and I pulled it up on the phone and saw it was a franchise. And it was actually a joke. I joked the other 5 partners. I'm like, hey, we should open up one of these indoor golf facilities, more because it was just like a fun thing than it was like I've done any research on whether that's a good business investment. But, regardless, I texted the investment email address on the corporate page and was looking for more information. And Like
You just put a feeler out.
Just put a feeler out, and then the next day, the CEO of the company, who was the sales manager at the time, I think there was only about 5 or 6 X-Golfs opened up nationally at that point. Emailed me back, and we started connecting there. And over a couple months, had kind of built up enough information to have like a real discussion as a company on whether to move forward.
Were there other things you guys tried as far as like regular businesses that weren't real estate?
We didn't try anything. I mean, there was conversations about random things. I think we were talking about Chick-fil-A at one point, but nothing got serious to the point where we're putting numbers to paper and really, getting to a point where we're going to make a decision about this.
So like this company, right? X Golf, like what was it where you're like, yeah, we're going to do this? Was it all looking at the numbers and kind of the projections that they put together with the franchise package, or like why was it golf?
Yeah. I mean, the stuff the franchise provided, looked very promising. That's, one piece of the equation. I spent probably 2 solid months putting together a full business plan.
Pro forma, all that kind of stuff.
Pro forma, researching competition, researching the market environment, all this stuff. I learned a ton of stuff about.
And then you just exploded into the market. You got 6 locations now, the entire Twin Cities area, right? Where are your 6 locations?
It's in order of opening: Champlin, Blaine, Woodbury, Medina, Apple Valley, and Eden Prairie.
And what was the time span between number 1 and number 6?
So number 1 was November of 2019. Number 6 was December of 2023. So pretty new store. We opened up 2 stores at the end of 2019 there, and you can imagine what happened to us in March of 2020.
Yeah. How did you make it through that?
That was tough times. You got a new business, you got a new business model. We're learning a ton about running this type of business. So just like buying your first townhouse and all the scramble of that. Now we're running a food and bev entertainment business and dealing with all the new challenges of that. And we really kind of start getting traction with the business, in early 2020 there. It's obviously our peak season in the winter months.
Then COVID.
Then all of a sudden, walls on the TV saying that March 17th, you got to close your doors. And, there we are with I think for 2 businesses cost about $1.5 million and no more revenue for a while.
How long? How long were you?
We opened back up on July 9th, so we were closed for almost 4 months.
Oh my gosh.
And then we had to close down again on November 17th of 2020 as there was that second wave. We were closed for about 2 months there. So we lost about 6 months of operating. And unfortunately, those 6 months were all during our
They're the good
kind of
ones.
peak seasons, right?
Yeah.
If we were closed in July, it's not quite as painful. But, fortunately for us, that was still a relatively small piece of the broader portfolio with the real estate. And, we were able to weather that storm.
Make it happen.
The goal of this business is produce predictable cash flow and, immediately started producing unpredictable cash flow and negative cash flow.
But you're already so far in, you can't abort mission.
You can't abort. You got loans, you got leases, you got, obligations that, you can't just walk away. So, we spent some time, just, figuring out how to become as lean as possible, during those down times and, work on stuff we could work on internally so that when we were allowed to be open or partially open, we could
crush it,
attack those scenarios.
So 6 locations. I assume did you add another location in 2020 or 2021?
The Woodbury location was actually built in 2018 under a different owner.
Okay.
And, for a variety of reasons, they wanted out of the business in 2021. So we actually bought that from them in 2021. So, after the second close down, that's only 6 months after we're back in business. But we had seen enough that we're ready to move forward.
I'm fascinated that the movement forward just kept happening. Like how and why do you all keep pushing it forward? I feel like it's not a survival thing at this point. It's more like we're still trying to grow this.
Yeah, we're still heavily in growth mode. You can't always be waiting for perfect conditions to execute your growth because you'll never do anything.
Yeah, there's always going to be something that's not ideal.
Yeah, generally the best times are when everything looks like it's going to shit.
And you just got to be able to go and do it. So now that you've gone through so many things that have gone to shit, like if you had to go back to like first rental property, Ben and his partners, and like give a few pieces of advice about being an entrepreneur or growing a real estate portfolio, like what advice would you give yourselves?
Probably just don't be scared of it. Really, if we could, I would have bought every single property in the market that was available at that point, and really focused all our effort of how can we get money from other people to really foresee this opportunity. We were all focused on finding our own $5,000 to make these investments
instead of using other people's $5,000.
Yeah, I mean, granted, nobody probably would have listened to us, so it might be a moot point, but really understanding, it's certainly easier said than done of the opportunity that happened to be in front of us at that point. All those properties were going for a third of what they cost to build them basically at that point. And since then have tripled or quadrupled in value.
So you would have just done more of it?
Done more. That first one we bought, we actually went and looked at, I think, probably 60 townhouses.
You would have just bought out.
Getting this realtor, Ron Toft out of Woodbury, all over town, just looking at these $60,000, $80,000 townhouses. And the fact of the matter was it wouldn't have mattered which one of those 60 we bought. They all would have been just fine.
Is that just how real estate is? Like if you get in at the right time and you can make it through some of that tougher stuff, like it works?
Yeah, it certainly helps to hit a time like that. I mean, I would like to say we were, so smart to see this. We certainly weren't. It just happened to be the time where we had a few extra dollars in our pocket. So it's great timing to get in. But, if you're in real estate for 10 or 20 or 30 years, you're going to have really good times. You're going to have really bad times. It's just the reality of the matter.
And weathering it and just like being in it is kind of some of what the struggle is.
Yeah. Yep. And, it'd be nice if it was clear, repeatable cycles where, it's going to crash every 8 years and I'll just get in on the 9th year. But
it's not all that easy.
Right. It's just one big series of unpredictable events.
So now you're in the X-Golf business, which I'm sure there's things that you've learned over time that you're applying to that business. Like what are some of the things that you didn't know going from real estate into running like an event space, golf center? Like what are some of the things you had to learn when you took on kind of that new endeavor?
One big piece is hired and leading a team. So I had 3 or 4 direct reports at Target for a lot of my ending part of my career there, and those people are generally very intelligent and motivated, and they're not super hard to lead. They're just going to keep grinding and grinding.
Yep.
We're in the kind of the hospitality space. You're going to get a much wider mix of people that want to be there, care to be there, have the capacity to do well. So it's trying to figure out how to manage this broader team,
but build the organization and the management and leadership within all that. It's like a totally different ballgame than the numbers and the financing with real estate.
And you're developing the culture too, right? If you're at a corporation, you're going to be under their culture, right? But if you're running your own company,
now you got to build your own culture.
You define the culture, and whether good or bad, that's what it's going to be.
So what's the culture like at X-Golf right now?
It's solid. Our turnover is extremely low. So we first started, our turnover was extremely high. I had no idea how to do any of these things I was just talking about. So we had, really it seems like the first 6 months, just getting people to show up on time and sober was like the only challenge that I cared about.
So was that a hiring thing then, or was it like a leadership thing? Like which one was it there?
I'd like to think it was all hiring. At that point, like the economy was very strong. The general like hospitality, food service business is very strong. Unemployment in that space very low. Nobody had any idea what X-Golf was. So, a lot of the hires we made was basically anybody that would, show up the interview, we'll give them a shot, and, it turned out
just need
not to
bodies
be
almost.
not to be a great practice. Definitely found some people that weren't people you want on your team.
Yeah. So now, like, fast forward, you guys have peak season 80 employees, 6 of like event centers. X Golf, is it a full restaurant and bar?
Full bar. It's kind of limited food options. So
more like a
burgers and
brewery
pizzas
type of vibe
and
almost.
Yeah.
Like,
and
or
most
a
breweries
bar.
have like a food truck, but probably the menu of a food truck is comparable to what we have for our menu.
And the hours are like the same as a regular restaurant would be type of deal, or is it open later because of like the golf side?
We're open in the winter from like 8 a.m. to midnight on weekend days.
Holy goodness. So
I mean, it's 102 hours. We're open a week in the winter, and we dial that back to 60 hours in the summer months.
So now with something like X Golf, the revenue that you can drive through the business, there's a lot more fluidity and you can create more opportunity within it, right? And you're almost forced to do it with the scenarios that you were in. But then also when it's like that inside golf setting, like people maybe don't want to play golf inside, like when it's June and it's really nice outside. So
including myself.
yeah, so now you have to find those new revenue opportunities. Like how do you go about identifying those? Is it like a need-based thing? Is there a playbook that you get from X Golf for that, or?
A little bit. I have a lot of conversations with our corporate team. We have a big, week-long conference once a year. So a lot of these discussions are happening. For me, you can kind of, feel the pockets of opportunity in the business, so coming out of COVID or, during COVID and shortly after COVID, like there was no social gathering events happening. You get kind of your diehard golfers that would come in, and that's great. But probably late 2021 into 2022 started to get more and more requests for private events, whether it's corporate parties or birthday parties.
And how big can the events be depending on your spaces?
Most of the spaces we can fit up to about 65. Our Apple Valley is kind of our flagship store. We can fit 125 people for a party.
That's
in that
a lot
space.
of people. Is everyone golfing then too? Is that like the whole space?
It all depends. Yeah, those are sellouts, so sometimes, it'll be big golfing groups. We've had Christmas parties where nobody even touched a golf club. They'll come in there and they'll watch movies on the screen. They'll sing karaoke, they'll play cards, do whatever they want.
So really, did it just become like driving, like finding the revenue opportunities and like marketing it?
Yeah. So with the events, it was just becoming too much for me to keep up with. And each store has a store manager, and they have so much stuff going on that they can't handhold somebody for a half-hour conversation about every detail of their party. So we hired an event manager in November of 2022, and at that point, her full job was just to grow the private event space. And from that, it's kind of grown. She's grown to kind of our head of sales and marketing.
So X has like the golf part of it almost become just like one of the things that is there for these events and these other activities. Like, does that drive the business more?
Yeah, I mean, golf's still a staple. I mean, most groups are coming in, golf is, most of what they're doing. But we want to continue to find ways to leverage our 40,000 square feet of entertaining space with, full bar and food options. And, we have no problem bringing in catering from wherever for those big groups. We got TVs all over the place. We got 18-foot screens that we can put games on.
A lot of opportunities there, right? It's just like, what are people trying to do? So then, like, from like the golf standpoint, is there like a subscription type of model that you have where somebody like joins a club and then come play so many hours, or like how does that side of the business work?
So we didn't for a long time, but we actually just rolled out a membership program about 2 months ago.
Nice.
Where there's like a weekday membership and then a full membership where you can use it throughout the week, and then a corporate membership where you can have multiple card holders that can leverage any of the 6 locations.
Sign me up, dude.
Yeah.
Seriously.
And it's a pretty good deal if you use it.
But that, I mean, it's almost like the fractional like boat club type of vibe. You get like that. You get a simulated golf space you can go and just play. Like, I feel like my dad's going to sign up for that immediately when I tell him about it. Well, so from a cost standpoint, then It's just like, are they going to stay with it for 12 months, right? Like, or is it like annual contract? Or are you guys going month to month?
We're doing annual contracts.
Yeah.
For now, they're reasonably priced. It's
Makes
starting
sense.
at $100 a month. And again, if you're using it, I mean, it's way cheaper than just paying rack rate to go in there.
Especially like with as much as like the greens fees and the dues to the clubs can be, like that's a
much cheaper than
steal.
that.
And like there's 6 courses around, and then you can play whatever the heck course you want too.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. What prompted that? Is it to stabilize revenue for the business, or?
Yeah, it's kind of smooth out revenue, as you can manage it. And, we crush it in January, February, March.
Yeah.
And, it's tough in June, July, and August, where you get those annual members and you can kind of smooth that cash flow out a little bit. And
Some
hopefully,
type of predictable revenue.
yeah. And also with, as many stores as we have now, I mean, we have 40 bays across the 6 stores and we're open, up to, 16 and 18 hours a day. So I have basically 600 hours of bay time to fill on a daily basis, so we measure, utilization, as one of our metrics. And, we still have a lot of capacity, right? So yeah, I'd much rather have people in there utilizing, those bays, drinking our beer, eating our food than to have those bays sit empty. So
it's really just filling those 600 hours every day. That's hard to think about when I think about it that way. So now you're getting into the marketing pretty heavy, right? Like the franchise gives you so many different things, but you're going to the networking events. I mean, that's how I met you, was networking.
Yeah.
And now you're really like trying to drive people just visiting, right?
Yeah. I mean, the competitive market in the indoor golf space has grown tremendously in the last 3 years. When we first opened up, there were, maybe 3 or 4 competitors in the metro, and there's probably 30 of them now, including your traditional outdoor golf courses that are putting sims into their buildings to try to get some business, right? So, we've put a lot of focus and money into marketing in the last 6 months, and we'll continue to do that going forward.
Because I mean, depending on the seasonality, right? Like the opportunities there, like this market, I don't know all the golf stats, but I'm pretty sure there's like a lot of golfers per capita in this area.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how much of that can we capture in that off season, right? So how are you going about, I'm trying to think about marketing for that. And like, I don't really know how to go about it other than winning the keywords like e-simulation golf near me or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like we still have a lot to learn there, right? Because marketing is a little bit, it can be a black box as far as return on investment. I mean, I get a dozen emails a day of some marketing company trying to push one marketing effort or another, but we're really outside of just our organic, social and email marketing. We're really pushing kind of paid Google and Meta marketing, and using Northwing Digital. You put me on to about 6 months ago. The reason we left the kind of the big digital marketing firms is we just couldn't calculate that number. We didn't have all the pieces plugged in to identify those goal conversions to say, okay, I spent $1 here. Did I at least get $1 back?
You couldn't track it.
Right.
So, I mean, that's so important when it comes to growing a business. But like when there's that many hours in a day to fill, like you gotta fill those hours. But at the end of the day, you got to make money. So even if those hours aren't filled, we got to sell burgers. We got to do something. And like, is that something now that you're kind of just taking all that on, like yourself, and like driving that vision for like X Golf locally?
Yeah. Summer's always been a bit of sleepy time around X Golf for us. And this year we're really going to attack summer. We brainstormed about 100 different ideas of things we can use our space for to drive customers, and everything from, live music, karaoke. We're doing like barbecue cookout events. We're doing like inside outside tournaments where we get a little mix of both. We got a day in Blaine where you can come and have breakfast and bloodies. And we got a casino bus that's going to take you to the casino and bring you back.
So now you got to just generate all these. It's almost like what a lot of breweries have to do is just like get people there, right? Because when there's people there, now there's money that's being spent.
Yep.
And golf can't be the exclusive thing in the summer. I mean, maybe it could, but
It is, but just not for our business, right? So, I mean, historically, being an alternative to outdoor golf has made up 95% of our revenue. You know, we obviously will always take that business and it'll always be the biggest part of our business. But we want to lower that percent down to like 70 to 80%.
For sure.
You know, and all these different ideas we have going where, you know, a lot of them are pretty cheap to try out. You know, and we're gonna try them out, but probably not in all 6 stores, but you know, one store for this event, one store for this event. You know, see how it goes. You know, things that go great, you know, expand them more often, more stores. You know, things that don't go great, you know, either revise the strategy or just maybe throw it in the trash
maybe
can,
the band
move on.
sucked or something like that.
Right.
But
you know, probably half of them will fail, and that's fine. But you know, if half of them succeed,
half of them work,
fine.
then you can replicate that. Well, like it's worth those failures, right? Like that whole being able to like take a failure and just keep on ticking. Like, is that something like you've always been wired that way? Like you just like don't have that fear and you're just pushing through, or is that something that you've kind of had to learn over time?
It's certainly something I've learned over time. I've always been super competitive, you know, love solving problems, you know, love, you know, continuing to learn and grow, you know, certainly across my corporate career and my entrepreneurial career, you know, there's plenty of opportunities we've had to, you know, find, you know, solves for those problems in the face.
And then you just got to figure it out. Like
just got to figure it out.
Yeah, you can't sink. You got to keep swimming.
And the group's got a very engineering mind. 2 of the guys are engineers, you know. So I mean, one of the guys will solve problems down to like a squeaky, you know, wash machine. You know, like for me, it's $150 used wash machine. Like let's just throw it in the trash and buy another $150 used wash machine.
It's an easier fix, but he's like gonna
him 4 hours taking the whole thing apart, diagnosing the problem, like machine molding the part for himself, putting it back together, and you know it's back working. So everybody's kind of got their own level of problem solving.
Well, and I think what's fascinating is like everything's still just plowing forward. Like with Minnesota Capital Management, you're still looking for more partners and opportunities. Obviously, the economy is going to impact that with financing and everything. But tell me a little bit about like what the next few years looks like for Minnesota Capital Management as far as the vision.
Yeah. So take one step back first from 2021 to basically now. We've basically been solely buying out of state. So Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, Arkansas, you know, we saw opportunities in those markets and we've gone after about a dozen deals out there, mostly, you know, roughly 100 unit apartment buildings or complexes. You know, the challenge we faced out there in the last 2 years is property management is very difficult everywhere.
Yeah, very tough.
Especially trying to, you know, these are all third-party companies that we're having, you know, managed leasing and CapEx and, you know, any sort of maintenance. You know, those companies are struggling finding people, keeping costs down, all these things, you know, and we're 700 miles away. You know, so we've been flying, you know, one of the partners out there every
just
other
to get
week
boots
for
on the
2
ground,
years,
pretty much.
You know, so, you know, really, I think the next couple of years for us will probably come back home and really focus on the Twin Cities market. St. Paul is still real tough with the rent control laws and you know various other factors, but there's a lot of opportunities in you know the metro, the first and second rig suburbs to get back local.
And you're looking for like dwellings, right? Are you like, is there the commercial side of things that from a real estate standpoint that you're still getting into?
Yeah. So multifamily, residential, and then also commercial. You know, so we bought our first commercial property in Apple Valley, Times Square Center, back in early 2023. That was first commercial property we bought, and we actually filled our largest vacancy with an X-Golf, which is a great kind of 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it easier to get the financing for one. Like when you have a tenant that's going to be there.
Yep. Yeah.
But then it's like 2 birds, 1 stone. So you buy that one. Did X-Golf drive that flip to commercial?
Not really. X-Golf kind of came along kind of shortly after that space identified. So we actually looked at that property 3 years ago now and ended up losing out to a different bid that ended up falling through. But the opportunity came back around in 2023. And, again, like we really had no idea in the commercial space. We had no experience. So we actually partnered with another local, company that we're close ties with, Obsidian Group, on the commercial side, and then Mid-America on the leasing side, to collectively buy that building. And that's been a really great success story on that one. Cash flowing well. Leasing's been strong. We're even going to do some dirt leases where they use some of the vacant space to, lease basically a space to a business.
That's pretty amazing. The opportunities that happen, like once you get to like a level like that where it's bigger deals, you kind of like have to have more than just one person involved, unless you got like a bunch of mommy and daddy's money somehow. Like it's hard to even like be involved in that conversation unless there's this teamwork and levels of expertise and money, right?
Totally. The money is a big piece. If you're by yourself, you're raising money from your network. If you have 3 different players in the game, you have a much bigger network and, likely different skill sets within the space.
But so within that space, isn't like everybody kind of looking for money, right? So what is it that like, what's different about like working with you guys than going and working with some of these other companies that do something similar?
I mean, a lot of it's, trustability, right? So, trust can be earned in a multitude of different ways. One being, have you provided good returns for my money historically?
Yeah.
That group of people is highly likely to put money back into your investments. Friends and family, is always a big piece. People in past jobs and careers, and your family, hopefully trust you, or you should work on that.
Yeah. So, I mean, how do you juggle all this stuff, man? Like honestly, like it's so much. I'm sure the team like helps it, but like you personally, to be able to go from working Target corporate through all these different iterations of yourself and your like life experience, like
I just love new stuff. Like I could never really work a job where I just had like a process to manage every week. It would drive me insane. And the fun part about running, this business and all the different webs we have out there is it's something completely, new every day. And some of it's great stuff and some of it's terrible stuff, but it's something new. And, my work schedule is flexible. I worked probably 20 hours yesterday. Today, I mean, granted,
casual 20.
We'll call this work and we'll call B&I work. And then, I'd probably go play golf this afternoon or something. But you can kind of balance the work with the play.
But you're still like engaging in that growth though, like that active participation and continuing to drive it forward. Like if you had, I don't know, motivate somebody out there that like isn't like driven like that, like what would you kind of tell somebody to get that?
Yeah, I think it's really having tough conversation with yourself or your business partners or your family on like, what are you truly trying to accomplish? With Minnesota Capital Management, I feel like we've only been trying to just grow the business to, a bunch of money since the beginning.
Yeah.
We had no idea what that number was, but just more. We haven't taken a penny out of the business, and we obviously pay ourselves some salaries, but there's been no distributions. And we're getting to a point now as, we're getting older. Most guys are in the early to mid 40s. Like we're spending a lot of time this year kind of taking a step back and defining, what is that true vision of the company? What is our 10-year goal, our 3-year goal? So they're all aligned and understanding what you're working toward. Because if you don't know what your ultimate success looks like, it's difficult to define what you're going to do in the next 1 year or the next 3 months or even today.
Like
right. So
just understanding like what's at the end of the path.
Yeah. So you can back off from that goal to, 15-minute increments if you wanted to. But, I'd say a lot of people don't necessarily know what they're trying to accomplish. So they're just kind of going through the motions.
Life's happening to them and they're just going through it. And like, if you're doing cool shit like you guys did, like you can come up for air and like be in a point where you like create a new vision, right? And it sounds like that's kind of some of what y'all are going through now, which makes sense. I mean, it's been 13 years. Like over time, things are going to evolve in those different individuals' lives. Yep. So, but you're going through like restructuring and creating processes and like roles within like the EOS process, really, so that you can kind of take that next step and make sure that everyone kind of still stays together, right?
Totally. I admittedly spend way too much time in the weeds, and I have forever. And, and it's some pieces of it I actually like, but it's probably not the best use of my time for the company. So like you mentioned, we're going through the EOS process right now. We're about 2 months into that and really getting the structure in place to be able to more frequently have these visions and goal planning conversations. And, your vision is never going to stay the same, all the time. Vision's going to continue to move around, but you can, shift your actions to refocus that vision. And it won't be a straight line to get there, but
change the outcome, but you have to be able to see what's going on and have that conversation. That's so hard, especially with a group of guys like that. Is there one guy that's just some shit's going wrong, guys, we got to talk about this to figure this out? Or has it been everybody just feels that trust and is okay with doing that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. Yeah, I feel like we've always been good about having the conversations about the here and now, and what do we need to work through to get through the next month or whatever like that. There's one guy in the group that definitely fits that more visionary role, that's asking more of the 10,000 foot questions that myself and Matt are kind of the two head operators are usually operating below that on that clearance level, that I think will really help drive the conversations. I'm surely open to having those conversations, and I love having those conversations, but I feel like we're always focusing on the problem, like Matt, my buddy, my business partner, Matt says, the gators that are closest to the boat.
But that's so much of business though, man. People are it's hard to zoom out because of the finances or a deal you got going on or something like that. So having at least somebody that can do that, now you just have to make sure the rest of the people on the boat are focusing on the right gators, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, we've covered a lot here today. You got way more layers to you. You're such a humble, soft-spoken individual. For achieving as much as you have, how do you, I'm personally interested, how you remain just a chill, down-to-earth dude.
I don't know. It's just always kind of been my MO. At the end of the day, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
Go bankrupt and start over.
Sure.
I got my health and got a good girlfriend and, fun hobbies, and, I get to spend a lot of time doing things that I want to do and hanging out with the people I want to hang out with. So, beyond that, the rest is kind of icing on the cake.
That's awesome. Well, so from an X-Golf standpoint, anyone that's looking for an event or wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to?
Yeah, they can reach me by email at benferet, BENFERET @gmail.com. Always happy to do a little networking at one of our stores and hit some golf balls and have a few beers. So yeah, that's the best way to get a hold of me.
Same thing for Minnesota Real Estate.
Yep.
And are you guys on social media for both of those as well?
For X-Golf, we are. You can find it at X-Golf Minnesota or any of the X-Golf individual locations. I think we have some LinkedIn stuff for Minnesota Capital Management, but that company stays a little behind the scenes.
Yeah, you're under the radar a little bit. Well, I mean, the locations are amazing. Sounds like there's lots of opportunity from event size, number of people that are there. And you guys are doing a lot of cool stuff this summer too. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Excuse me. Thanks again, Ben, for coming out here. We had some technical difficulties right before we started shooting, but just like I said, just a chill dude. Thanks again for coming on. Looking forward to chatting with you some more. Have a great rest of your day, Ben. Oh, wait. We have to do something else. I do this every time. Hustle. What's hustle mean to you?
Just go out and get it.
Just get it. I feel like you are a real hustler. Going from just trying to figure out how to get $5,000. Now you're hustling golf, 600 hours of golf a day. Just kudos to you, man. Go out and get it. That's the simplest definition, but it really defines it. So thanks again, Ben. Appreciate everyone tuning into the Homegrown Hustle. We got a bunch more in the pipeline. Check us out on social media. We'll make sure to tag Ben and all of our other guests on there so you can stay in contact with all of them locally here in the Twin Cities. As always, it's really hyper-local Twin Cities focused businesses that we're bringing on our show to learn about their stories and the things they've accomplished so that we can all grow and learn together.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eichmann signing off until our next insightful episode.